Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Back again. You know what I'm saying? Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe to the channel at Tay Luciano Media. That's Tay Luciano Media. In this video, I kind of wanted to talk about 50 Cent trolling behavior. I think it's just, at this point, 50 is more looked at for trolling than he is actual music. We love what 50 has done in the past when it comes to music, though. You know what I'm saying? When it came to Get Rich or Die Trying, the album, the movie, of course. Curtis' album was decent. You know, I think he had a few joints on Before I Self-Destruct. That was a little bit later down the line. You know what I mean? He's definitely still one of the ones, no doubt about it. You know what I mean? The way he came in the game and everything like that. But the way he came in, gotta remember, beefing with everybody. His top op, should I say, was Ja Rule, Murder Inc., Irv Gotti, and all of them. You know what I mean? We know the situation with him and Supreme Team, and Supreme was getting down with, Murder Inc. and Ja Rule and all them. We know that allegedly they played some type of role or some type of part in him being shot up 9 times or getting shot 9 times. You know what I mean? We know that. And then we know he's a pretty dope MC. I wouldn't say MC, but he's a pretty dope rapper. We know he could put songs together. You know what I'm saying? He had the big bangers, from Candy Shop to In the Club to Wanksta. You know what I mean? He had a hell of a cosign as well, coming from Dre and M. You know what I mean? At that point in time, and even still to this day, it's rare to see East Coast artists have a West Coast backing and following like that. Not to say it's not other artists, but when I say it was so much in the forefront, I think he will go down in history as one of the ones that, being from the East Coast, you know what I'm saying, and having a West Coast, somebody from the West Coast, and that being Dr. Dre backing him. And, and at that point in time, M was still Eminem, you know what I mean, love him or hate him, and then Dre was still, doing his thing, and even still to this day. But when it comes to the trolling of 50 Cent, it's just like, I think some of the time it just get out of hand, and it just get kind of petty. Now, we know 50 can be very, very petty. He's a very, very petty person. You know what I mean? We know this. We have seen it time and time again. You know what I'm saying? With several people, not just Ja Rule and Murder Inc., with him beefing with Game, when he was beefing with, when he was going at Fat Joe, even with his beef with Cam, when he had a small beef with, Cam and all of them at a point in time. And a lot of the time, most of the time, he tend to stick his nose at other people's business. You know what I mean? He was trolling back when it wasn't even called trolling. I don't know what we was calling it back then. I can't remember, but he's a known troll. Like, if anybody's gonna go down like the king of trolling, it would definitely be 50. You know what I mean? He would definitely wear that crown as the king of trolling. And really, kind of sort of pressing your ops. You know what I mean? He was the first one to really do that. Because at that point in time, when 50 came in the game, we never seen an artist like beef with everybody, especially on the East Coast. You know what I mean? You see dudes beefing or going at other dudes from different regions, different cities, and stuff like that. But he had smoke with damn near the whole East Coast. I think he even had said something about Nas and before and Jay and all these people. Like he really came in on that type of time. And looking back at it, you know what I mean, it was just a bunch of trolling, like out this world. Like he was trolling heavy. He was trolling super duper heavy. You know what I'm saying? And that's what got him where he's at today. You know what I'm saying? I think, you know, he does. He got great songs. I ain't gonna say great. Well, we could say great. He got great songs, definitely. But far as everything else, you know what I'm saying, it's just, you could tell that's almost what he lives for. You know what I mean? And honestly, if he probably throughout the years wasn't trolling so much or just getting at people, I don't think he would be as relevant as he still is. You know what I mean? Like, you still got people like Jay around. You know, Jay-Z is still around. Fat Joe, you know what I mean? Nas and everything. You know, several people, you know what I mean, that we seen come up in his time frame. But, you know, what keeps him in the algorithm, what keeps him kind of ahead of everybody is the trolling and the beefing he does. You know, I think he done some great TV shows as far as Power, BMF, and stuff like that. But even if it wasn't for that, I don't think he would be as relevant. You know what I mean? But all that comes from mainly him trolling and just saying things and stuff like that, right? Fast forward, we see him trolling Diddy and Kanye. You know, a couple of weeks ago, he was saying that, you know, they shouldn't let Diddy out. He shouldn't get him partnered by Trump. You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that. Now, he's trolling Kanye. You know what I mean? Like, and I know back then, him and Kanye kind of had a thing when I think 50 was working on the Curtis album, and I think Kanye was about to drop, I believe it was Graduation. And it's funny that when those two albums came out, because they came out the same day, I remember both of them being on 106 and Park, and basically was seeing who's gonna sell the most records. Now this was at a time when you know, people were still buying physical copies. And Kanye came out the gate and kinda blew him out the water. You know what I'm saying, so to speak, kinda blew him out the water. And rightfully so, sold more records. And that was the Graduation album. And, you know what I'm saying, that was a good year too as well. But I just think the trolling is what keeps him, you know, keeps his energy going, keep him afloat. You know what I mean? Because if it wasn't for that, I don't think he would really be as relevant. You know, like people like Jay-Z, for example, is still relevant because, you know, he's someone that was super big, a part of the culture, like 50. You know what I'm saying? He got a lot of business adventures. You know what I mean? He's responsible for the Super Bowl performances for the last couple of years and all that. But he's not as relevant as he was 20 years ago, 22 years ago when he was rapping. You know what I mean? Everything he do is from the desk standpoint, meaning he's behind the desk more so he is anything now, you know, and several others. But I think 50, you know, is just one of the ones that just want to be somewhat in a limelight, you know, because them last couple of like albums later on down the line he put out really didn't do as good as, say, like you know, Get Rich or Die Trying or Curtis. And he had a few more, like I said, but those was like the top two most selling albums I believe, from 50, honestly, because I believe um, after he did the Curtis album, Before I Self Destruct, and I forget, it was a couple more after that. But I think that's just what it is with him. You know what I mean? But like I said, he came in beefing. He came in the gate, beefing with everybody, getting at everybody, and just really pretty much having his way, you know what I mean, with everything. And it's funny how when he came in, it's almost like they just moved Irv Gotti and RP Irv Gotti and Ja Rule and Murder Inc. right out the way, due to the facts that, after, the feds hit them, it was just about that. When that happened, it was just pretty much a done deal with them. You know what I'm saying? Once the feds got to them and took the company, and they had to come back out. I mean, they had to rebrand the company, and it could have been, it wasn't Murder Inc. no more, and it had to be the Inc. Records. And at that point, they was, I wouldn't say they was done at that point, because they still had a small run, but it wasn't the same effect. It wasn't the same that it was years before when it was Murder Inc. You know what I'm saying? And when they rebranded, they still had a decent run. They still had about a good 4.5, 5 year run, I believe. You know what I'm saying? That's when Lloyd got signed. Ashanti was already over there when it was Murder Inc. And then once that happened, you only see that it was really only like Lloyd, Ashanti, and Ja Rule. You know what I'm saying? But as far as with 50, he's somebody that's, like I said, been trolling for years. He's the king of it. You know what I mean? It's crazy for him to be as big as he is, and the mogul that he is. You don't really see that from a lot of people in his position. You know what I mean? You really see him get to this point and really kind of play the back row, or really all the way mafioso boss. You know what I mean? As far as like not really being on the scene as much. Maybe not, you know what I mean? We know he don't drop music like he used to, but that's what keeps him out here. You know what I'm saying? That's really what keep him in the algorithm. Honestly, I feel like, because if it wasn't for that, I think 50 would have been over for 50 a long time ago. I think even with doing the shows, you know what I'm saying? They're great shows, but I think people tuned in more of it because, really tuned in and more. Not only because they're great shows, but because people love trolling. So when a person is somebody like that, it just brings more excitement to your projects or whatever else you got going on. You know what I mean? Would I think 50 will ever stop trolling? Nah. Hell no, I don't think so. Because this is something he's been known to do for many, many years. He don't win at even his own people. You know what I'm saying? And, we see that even somebody that came in the door with him don't even rock with him no more. Far as like people like Lloyd Banks and Young Buck and stuff like that, you know what I'm saying? But the only person that's still by like 50 side, that's still like rolling with him still from day one, is Tony Yayo. Not Lloyd Banks, not Young Buck, not Game, not, you know what I'm saying, Spider Loc. Shout out to Spider Loc. But other than that, Yayo is the only person that's been sticking by his side and probably going to remain to stick by his side. But I could see that even with Tony Yayo he's a yes man. You know, we can kind of see that on certain things he probably don't agree with him with and stuff like that, but we can see that he follows certain protocol with 50. You know what I'm saying? He probably know not to step out of bounds with certain things or get too ahead of himself. You know what I mean? Because I believe if he was the day Yayo really go against him, is the day he probably will really get to going on Yayo, because we done seen him do it with everybody from the gang to Ja Rule to, you know what I mean, to everybody. You know what I mean? So it's just he's definitely a huge entertainer that's loves to troll. You know what I mean? Hands down. You know, so, and it's crazy that he would say that about Diddy. You know, some of it may be true, some of it may be not true, but to say you want him to stay in prison is crazy. And this all stems from, you know, his baby mom's being at one of Diddy's freak offs. You know what I mean? And I knew it had to be something, you know what I mean? But he hasn't been with, I'm quite sure, his child's mother in quite some time. So it's kind of almost strange. I don't know when she first started going to the freak offs or got around Diddy, was they were still messing around with each other or still together, I don't know. But to say you want to, you know, they should keep him in prison is crazy. You know what I'm saying? That says a lot. You know, so I just feel like he's never going to stop regardless. It could be the year of 2035, 50 will still probably be trolling, saying a lot of head-turning stuff, you know what I mean? A lot of stuff that'll make you look at him like, damn, you know, he's still at it, you know, because at this point, it's 2025. He came in, like I said, he came in the game just going at everybody. So what we seeing from 50 is nothing new, but you would think at this point he would just fall back and, you know, chill out. But we see that definitely, that's not going to happen no time soon, period. I don't see that happening no time soon. We see him, you know, get into it with Big Meech and free Dude is home, should I say. You know what I'm saying? All because he took a picture or had some business going on with Ross. So we seen him go from being cool with Lil Meech and everything like that to him totally doing a 360 against them because they was in line with Ross, and Ross was gonna have Big Meech to, you know, host his car show that just previously passed in the beginning of June. You know what I'm saying? And I think that was a all-out star-studded event, you know, with Rick Ross car show. But we see how he got at Big Meech about that. You know what I mean? And, you know, and saying little stuff on his Instagram, posting memes and posting the text thread of him or Lil Meech talking to him and trying to work something out. That's all a part of trolling. You know, the memes and, you know, making jokes and cracking jokes and doing all of that. That's all a part of trolling. And the whole text message threads, that all coexist with trolling. So I don't see this ever really stopping. Does 50 do, you know, got great business adventures? I think he definitely does. I think he is definitely business orientated. But when it comes to like the trolling level, or should I say the trolling he be on, he definitely goes all in, point blank, period. But let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think 50 will ever stop trolling at some point where he'll just fall back and be an all the way boss that he is? Or do y'all think that he is going to just continue because it's been so long? Let me know in the comment section. You know what I'm saying? Please and thank you. Make sure y'all like, share, and subscribe to the channel at Tay Luciano Media. That's Tay Luciano Media. Peace.